This is December 10th, 1987. This is Joe, Todd, and Berenice Jackson, an interview with Mr. Ray Austin Holman in Woodward, Oklahoma. So, where were you born?
Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
That's my hometown.
That was right. I was born out in Osage Hills. Well, I was born in Bartlesville, but I grew up out in Osage Hills.
What part of the Osage Hills?
You know where Byron is?
Yeah.
I went to that old Buck Creek school.
When's your birthday?
April 9th, 1924.
Who was your father?
Robert Mountain Holman.
What was the middle name?
Mountain.
Milton. Oh. And your mother?
Alice.
And what was her maiden name?
Stone.
Stone. S-T-O-N-E. And where were your parents from?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. When did they come to Oklahoma?
I don't remember what year, but well, let's see. They come here in a covered wagon. And Arnie was, and Laura, Arnie's 72, 76. But he was just a young kid at the time when they come here.
Just a second. Did your parents say why they came to Oklahoma?
I imagine they starved out in Tennessee. They was looking for opportunities in Oklahoma, I imagine.
And about what year did they come here?
They got phone on the hook too. Lord, I don't remember. I see. Like I said, my brother's 76, and the three oldest kids was, I would say, 70 years ago or better. Because he's 76. He's a little boy to come here. So 70 years ago, I'd put it when.
About 17?
Huh?
About 1917?
Yeah, 16. Somewhere close to that. Right along here.
Does he live here in town, your brother?
No, he's Blackwell. He's a nursing home.
Okay. What kind of work did your father do?
Well, he farmed and worked as a smelter, worked as a zinc smelter.
As a small boy, what chores did you do around the farm?
Milked them old cows. Or helped plow with a walking turtle plow.
How many acres did you plow in one day with that plow?
I don't remember, probably acre and a half with a team.
Now, where'd you live at this time?
I live in 9 Mile northwest of Bartlesville.
Back there at Barron?
Well, it's out there towards Buck Creek School.
Did your father have trouble getting back and forth to work in those days?
Well, prior to that, we lived at Blackwell. He worked at a zinc smelter. We worked at zinc smelter at Bartlesville, both places. Then we moved back to Bartlesville on the farm.
You ever go to that smelters?
Huh?
You ever go to that smelters when your father worked there?
I worked there.
You did?
Right after I got out of service, I didn't like it. And I didn't like farming.
You started the school at Buck Creek School?
Yeah, that's where I got my 8th grade education. That's what I got, right out of that.
Is that a one-room school?
Yeah, 2 rooms.
2 rooms. Who was your first teacher there?
Oh, Price was his name. I don't have his first name. I don't remember that.
How many classes in one room? How many grades?
Oh, 4 at one end of it and 4 at the other end of it.
Can you tell me how Mr. Price handled all the 4 grades in one room?
Well, I don't remember that. It was a problem.
How did you celebrate Christmas at school in those years?
Sir?
How did you celebrate Christmas at school in those years?
Pretty slim.
What kind of program did you have?
Oh, they had activities at school. Oh, they'd have a Christmas program. They'd get up there and sing just like they do now, or, you know, old time days. They changed little old nickel gift, maybe. Wasn't much. Nobody had no money. And they had pie suppers and to raise money. box suppers. I gave him $9 for a box supper one time. I had a girl in school there, and this Andy Wilson, he was a rancher. He run it up to $9, which back then was a lot of money. And I cut wood with a cross-cut saw and hauled it. My dad helped me haul it to town and get a hold of that $9 to pay back for that box supper. That was a lot of money back then, let me tell you.
What year was that?
Oh, I forget that year, but I see. Let's see, I'm born in 24. 33, 34, 5, somewhere around there.
Do you know what work your father did at the smelters?
Huh? He was a millwright man.
Okay, what does a millwright man do?
Just about anything tears down on one of them, he fixes.
Of course, they built a new smelters there now. It's all electric.
Well, the one in Bartlesville is all electric. The one in Blackwell, they've got away with that. Yeah, I've got an uncle that's a foreman now. And I went out there. Used to, you couldn't hardly breathe or anything. You walked out there. But I don't know if it was still running when you was a kid there or not. Remember that old order it had?
We live due north of it. We live due north of it, in the south wind. And,
your grandpa.
mm-hmm.
And,
Small world.
Yeah, how often do you come down to salvage there?
oh, back when it's on 14th Street, I used to go in there quite a bit. Nothing else, just DS with it.
And that old red-headed kid running around?
Yeah,
That was me.
I didn't know that.
And that's been
How old are you, baby?
41.
Probably, my baby sister's 57. Ain't she? Well,
This was his daddy. Remember seeing him?
Yeah,
Of course, you've seen a lot of people.
yeah, he looks familiar. Oh, that's been a long time ago.
yeah, it'd been a long, long time ago.
Yeah, I spend every Saturday at that salvage and every summer. And then we had there at Frank Phillips, the 2-story house, and he moved out southwest of Bartlesville on Farmstall Road. And, well, you knew Bill Blunt, didn't you?
Yeah.
At Bowery? He cut my hair every year for,
Down there on Niggertown,
there in Virginia.
coon hunter.
Yeah.
He was coon hunting, my dad.
I used to go coon hunt with Daddy and Bill Blunt when I was a kid.
How's he getting along, Harold, other than sugar diabetes?
Oh, fine. He's just got back from deer hunting. He goes to Colorado every year deer hunting. And then we have 400 acres down there by Water Rock. He goes hunting there. And we have 200 acres up in Kansas, goes up there hunting. And he's on insulin. And, he's lost a lot of weight. And he has good days and bad days, but he keeps on going.
So your mother's name was what?
Mildred.
Yeah. She's better looking than her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Harold always
They
built
sure,
like pit
yeah,
bull,
they just tell it like it
you know.
is.
I remember I talked back to him one time.
Huh?
I talked back to Daddy one time.
Well-
I never did it again.
You never knew better.
I talked back to my dad several times. We never did get along till
I found that wouldn't help him.
Ray didn't take that advice. He just, does he look like his father?
I look more like Mama's side.
yeah.
In fact,
No, his daddy's
oh yeah.
muscles. Broad, carries a lot of weight.
I take after Mama's side of the family.
Your dad was a hard worker.
Oh yeah. Well, he still is. He still works on his cars and trucks. And yeah, he leased that salvage out that land there, and it's
Down there below the smelter, on the south end of the smelter. Every time I go over there, I think about it. I think, well, I wonder where Harold's at.
yeah, he just lives on down the Bartlesville Road. You know where the old Labadee High School is?
Yeah.
Just right across the road where we live.
Is that right?
Yeah, that brick house. There.
Next time I go over there, I think I'll run out and see. He probably wouldn't remember me, and I wouldn't remember him.
Oh, he comes out to Alva quite a bit and buys trucks, buys pickups.
I'll bet you'd remember him. He might not remember you because there'd be so many people that have went through his mind since then, but you would remember him when you saw him.
No, Fred and Mabel were good people.
Oh, yeah. In fact, Grandpa's one that got me started in museum work. There at the salvage was an old, I was digging up these old bottles. And I taken to Grandpa and he'd identify them, and he asked me one day where I was getting these. And down there at Smelter Town, that's where the salvage was. And showed Grandpa, and he said, yeah, this was Smelter Town is also called Frog Holler. And he said they had a bunch of houses here. They had a hotel there for the smelter workers and everything. So he started identifying the old bottles and just went from there.
You know where Nigger Gap was down there below Bartlesville?
Yeah, I go through Nigger Gap every time I come back to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Because Nigger Gap is just, you go down, because we're just there, and just 2 or 3 miles down the road is Nigger Gap through there. In fact, my playground is Circle Mountain up there. Well, we can get back to that.
Did you remember Grat Rogers on North Johnston?
Oh, Lord, yes.
Identify that old bottle.
How come it was called Nigger?
Okay, this is the first soda water bottle. First bottle. They had a cork here. It filled up, and the bubbles would come up, and when you drank it, you just popped it and knocked the cork down, and they reused the cork.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of,
They said that was,
did this come with it?
yeah.
Had a cork there, and
Oh,
it
yes, I
was
see.
a pop bottle.
Well, mine.
And
is.
whenever
I
you
have-
drank it, you just took your hand, you hit the cork and knocked the cork down in. Then drank it, then you gave it back to them, and they'd wash it out and reuse the same bottle and same cork.
And it, when they put it in there, it forced the top back
Yeah.
up.
I have one of those from Bartlesville Bottling Works.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I had 6 of them.
How old is this?
Oh, Lord.
It probably is-
Grandpa said that they first started selling Cokes in this, but he couldn't drink Coke because it had cocaine in it. And that's where the name Coca-Cola comes from, cocaine.
Mhm.
It is?
Sure
Yeah,
is.
that's what they said.
Yeah,
And
Coke-
it's got cocaine in
It
it?
did have.
Oh, it did have.
Got a regular 12 Coke.
In fact, cocaine was
That's
a medicine at one time.
Yeah, it was.
They had
it
headaches, the
was-
doctor prescribed Coca-Cola. When you drink enough Coke, the headache goes away.
John Cope would love to see that.
Who?
John Cope. Boy that married my granddaughter.
I had 6 of them, and I finally got rid of all of them but one.
Who was that old boy
This
that
was-
got that
Is it day
rented that
8
shop
and
from
10.
your dad right after
8
he,
and 10.
Yes.
Harold got out of it? He's a motorcycle.
Well, that
right?
has a meaning.
Yes, it was bottled between 1908 and 1910.
That was about
That's what they
50,
said
so.
when I got it. My brother gave me these.
Well, Clyde Haley
Uh-huh.
worked there,
We'll keep it.
Yeah,
That's
and
but I had some that didn't even have a finish on them, and somebody swapped some of them.
Oh.
That's the
Some
way
old boy
it
got
goes.
it too. He was motorcycle crazy, 'cause I was too. Back there, they got me for riding a motorcycle.
was it Russell Lambert? Back in the 50s.
Can't remember. It was long around, I'll tell you when it was long around 54, 55, somewhere on there. But I was going east on Frankfurt Boulevard, standing up on one of them Harleys. Just shifted with the weight, my body, and I was flopping on. You ever hear of Bill Dunlap, Highway Patrol there?
Oh, yeah, I know that.
Well, he's the one that got me. I was coming into town right at 5 o'clock, and I headed toward the penny, and I was standing up on there. And he hollered, "Get out off, ma'am." And I went on out there, and I pulled into the station.
You probably thumbed your nose at him.
And I pulled into the station, and here just as soon as he got where he turned and wanted to come back, he did nail me. And Clyde Lowe, he was with me.
Oh, yeah.
You know
I went
Clyde?
to school with Clyde, or else his boy.
His boy, little Clyde.
Yeah, little Clyde. He and I went to school together.
Anyway, Clyde's over, the old man Clyde's over the line. Anyway, old Bill down that come out there, and he started writing me a ticket. Some kid got hurt on a custom motorcycle. He said, that's, of course, me, I'm smart, Ellie. Probably 30, 35 years old. He said, I said, well, what's this going to cost, Billy? He said, oh, about $35. I said, well, ain't too bad. I said, if you play, you got to pay the fiddler. And, well, old Denny Garrison.
Oh, I know Denny. He's in our board of directors.
Yeah. I went up there before him the next day and $125 in court costs and 10 days in jail. I went back downstairs and I said, told old Bill, I said, boy, I said, you see what you got me into? He said, what's that? I said, well, that's crazy. DA won't give me $125 fine and recommended 10 days in jail. He's supposed to go drink, get a cup of coffee, and come back to us. Just can't get that night. I said, yeah, I did. So I called my wife up there too. Then I said, get me money down there. I took $50 with me. And I said, I'm gonna need some more money. She was working at Philip Dykes, come down there and brought us some money. I walked in there, old Garrison said, are you ready for going for what, Judge? And I said, just ready as I ever be. I come out of that judge's chambers. Oh, he jumped on that $125 court cost right quickly. Didn't make me pull that 10 days. But I walked out there. I told old Garrison, I said, we're even now, ain't we? He said, that's right. I said, I want to tell you something. I said, if you as much as run for dog catcher next term, I'm going to be campaigning against you night and day. He said, well, that's your privilege. And I said, and I'm sure going to be exercising it. And it wasn't just, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks while he got me for DUI and wrecked the car. Then he did throw a book at me. But I got out on bond. But old Sherman Bowling, you remember when he was Sherman? Well, I knew Sherman real well. He'd worked a smelter too. He told me, he said, you ready to pull that 10 days? If you come up here, he said, I'll make a trust out of that and get you 5 days. I said, all right. So I finally went up there. But old Denny Garrison said, no, you ain't going to make a trustee out of him. Said he is sentenced to 10 days and he's going to pull that 10 days. And I done just that. And we got out that time, that's when I told old Denny Garrison, I said, you can take this down to jamming. But I was kind of wild.
Is that Nancy?
Yeah.
You know, I was kind of wild.
Now then, he can take your story.
Yeah.
I want to know first, why was it called Liberty?
Because there
Well,
was,
they was segregated then.
well, there's a big story behind that. Grandpa told me, and old Joe Barber told me.
Yeah.
You know, he finally died here a while back. Got hit by a car.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. And he walked everywhere.
Yeah.
And there was a Cherokee man in there before the Civil War in New Gap. And he had this big house, this big basement. And slaves would escape from Arkansas and Louisiana and Mississippi. And they'd head up that area and he would hide the slaves in his basement.
Yeah.
And then at night they'd get out of the basement, they'd go up into the territory, Kansas territory, where they were free. And they got the name of Nigger Gap because this guy was hiding slaves in his house.
And they called it Liberty.
Yeah.
Let me run in here.
There was one, I had never seen an auction.
So we were down there at,
Saleville, you know.
we were down
where
at
they had
Andersonville
Negro people
There at-
just south.
this
And
summer.
they'd
That's
say,
Confederate, you know,
Yeah.
prisoner
a
war
South
camp.
Negro.
So we went down.
She
We
was a
went
good
to
reader. Or she
asked
might
to get
have,
invention for POWs.
2 or 3
We went
children
on
while
down
she
through
was
there
a
and Plains, Georgia
fantastic
stuff.
cook or something.
She had never seen the
And they
sale bill on
specified
niggers.
what
I told her
they
about
loved,
seeing them.
And then they went ahead.
Had them in there.
They had
But your
a
granddad,
Negro that had his foot cut off.
I got up there
They
that
had
morning.
one that, had a hand
and I was still
something,
working.
You know,
I worked at KSF at the time.
no, they didn't bring too
Yeah,
much. And that's what they was saying. And of
I
course,
told
then
them
all this
ranch.
other clutter and a Negro
Nothing
whip.
running
And
dairy barn. I
you know,
said
they
to her
kinda
down
impressed
there.
me because
And,
Where was this?
Up KSF,
I was
a branch,
raised in
Canadian
Texas.
branch.
Yeah, yeah.
And
they didn't have it.
as soon as I got them chores done, I made a beeline to that hospital.
down there?
I never
Your
seen a
grandpa was
Negro
down there at
until
that
I was
bedside.
36 years old.
Is that
Of course, Dad was in
Never
a
seen
coma,
a
you know.
colored person until I was
But Fred said
36
he
years
knows,
old.
and he knows
We've
it's
seen
me, that I put
Mexicans,
Masonic on,
but
and
not
he
a
returned it,
Negro.
you know.
And
Well, Texas came
This-
in as a
Right
slave
after that,
state.
didn't turn
Yes.
over. That's why.
But we was up in the Panhandle. And
Yeah,
there was not
small
no,
world.
Texas Panhandle?
uh-huh, and
What
there was
town?
absolutely no Negroes there.
No, there wouldn't be any Negroes up there. What town in Texas?
The Dealey's going.
Is what?
Are we ready to start again?
No, I'm visiting.
You know, we're gonna have to go in the kitchen.
What town in Texas?
Glacier,
Yeah, I know where Glacier's at.
Yeah.
I've been there many times.
okay.
Okay. Now your grandfather, great grandfather had slaves.
My grandfather,
Your grandfather, what was his name?
Lord, I don't know. My folks left them people today.
Jim Holman.
And I never went back down there till after the war. And my mother had never seen any of her people in 40 years.
It was Jim.
So you started school at Buck Creek School.
Yep.
And you went through 8 grades there?
Yep.
Okay. And you go on through high school?
Yep. We're too poor. We couldn't afford gasoline. There wasn't no bus route back in days.
How did the Depression affect you and your family, 1930s?
Well, if you didn't raise it, you didn't eat. It was way rough.
After the 8th grade, what'd you do?
Well, I helped Dad on the farm there. Me and him didn't get along the best. I'm hot-headed. He was too. And I would leave home. Me and Dad got into it several times. And then I went went to work over at Blackwell. Went to work for old Manifee. He's a wheat farmer. And I went out there and I was pitching bundles. He got up and milked 6, 8 head of cows. Fed a bunch of hogs. Had a bunch of white-legged chickens. You do all them chores before breakfast. Had harness of tea. And then you go in and eat a great big farm breakfast. Then you head to the field and fire up that old Stevens rice machine. First year I worked for him, I pitched bundles for 75 cents a day. You pitched bundles all day long, and you got in that evening. Wheat got too tough to cut, rice, well, you'd come in that evening and you'd go through these same procedures. You'd take feed, put away your team, milk these cows, and about 9:30, 10 o'clock, you'd be sitting down at the supper table. 4 o'clock the following morning, he'd rap on that floor. There was 2 of us, me and him, Pete Randall. And it's time to hit it, boys. Well, it was just about 4 to 10 o'clock. In the middle of the afternoon, his wife would come out there and bring a big bunch of farm groceries like that did back in days. And in the second year, well, old Earl, he took a liking to me, and I got running the bundle wagon.
What's a bundle wagon?
That's what you haul the wheat to the rice machine to. The rice machine didn't go get it. They bind it, put it in bundles, and then shocked it. And you had bundle pitchers, they'd pitch it on the wagon, and bundle wagon, while they'd stack it, they'd pull in the rice machine and price it. Well, that's a big promotion. Earl offered me a deal. He told me if I'd stay with him. He'd send me to school and said I had a little bit of spending money. But he didn't have, but I was getting $7 a week back then. And you could go to town, you could go to the picture show, you'd buy a pair of overalls for $1. $1 was $1 then, And then I went and worked at Hazelite Glass Company there in Blackwell when I was 16 years old. And R.D. Lee, he was a shop foreman. And he said, "You're awful small." I said, "All I want to do is a chance to prove myself." And I made her flying colors. I had no problem.
What kind of work did you do there? What kind of work did you do
I
there?
was service boy, made boxes, and they had these bottles, all different kinds of whiskey bottles, fruit jar stuff they'd come off his plate. I had his girl that box. I'd make his box go up there, and they'd had selectors. They'd select it. Anything had a flaw in it, well, they'd throw it in the barrel, and they'd holler, cull it, and then I'd have to run and get a two-wheel dollar and cull it. It was run for 6 hours. Worked 6 hours a day, 7 days a week, 42 hours a week. And then I went to work at the foundry over there, and I forget the name of the foundry.
What year was that?
Oh, I see. 38, somewhere along there. And then I went to work down at the foundry and do a little bit of light rodeoing, play with the horses, drink a lot of whiskey. And
In the rodeo, what'd you do?
oh, I just a little local rodeo there.
And you say you drank whiskey or made whiskey?
Drank it.
Drank it.
I drank whiskey ever since I was small.
Where'd you get it?
On North Johnstone, Bartlesville, Oklahoma, where I started getting it, you know.
Who was the biggest bootlegger there in Bartlesville?
Well, Grat Rogers was, you know, kingpin at that time. You go down there on South Virginia, about every other house, why, they had these 5-gallon water bottles, you know, that Ozark of water, why, had a chip or something, why, you go down there and if you own a pint or half pint or fifth or gallon, why, if I remember right, I think you get a pint for 50 cents, or might have been a quart.
Where'd they make the whiskey?
Huh?
Where'd they make the whiskey?
What with?
Yeah, or where? Was it in the house, or did they have it down in the creeks, or
Out there in them hills.
Osage Hills?
Plum Clipper was a prime one. You both remember him. And
And Byron had a bake stand there in Bartlesville.
there was several of them around.
He was one of the big bootleggers there.
Yeah. And let's see, all that one lived over there on Cherokee. I forget his name. I had a nephew that he's dead now. He's younger than I am, but Sam Couch. He took was one of the big time bootleggers. That nephew of mine, he got to go down there, he and some other boys. I wasn't in on it, but they got to go down in there and they broke in and stole a bunch of whiskey from him. And his mother was mad because Bobby wasn't working and wouldn't go to work. His grandma Alexander said, well, said, I don't know what else you expect him to do. Said, he's selling whiskey, and he was just a kid at the time. And you probably remember the Davis boys, Pete, Lige, and Tim Davis. That was Tommy and Bobby and Larry. Larry was on the police force there. Well, that was one of them stealing whiskey from Sam Couch, reselling it to his uncles. You know, he was a kid. He was reselling that whiskey to Pete and Lige for little or nothing. So it made a good deal for all of them. Bob made a little money, and Uncle Pete and Uncle Lige, they got to stay drunk pretty cheap. What it boiled down to.
Did you do any work for the CCC or WPA?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Nope. I started to run backwards.
Did you know Harley Hitchcock?
Name rings a bell, but can't place it.
He married Cleta Sharpton.
Did you know George Buford?
I know the name, but I can't. I was going to ask, he was killed in the war. Harley was.
Well, did you know any of them Davis boys?
I knew of Billy Davis.
Huh?
I knew of Billy Davis.
Slim kid, wasn't
Yeah.
he? I don't know where he's at.
Hey, what'd you do up until the time you joined the Army?
Well, I say I was working over at Blackwell at that there fountain. And, that's 42. I got that greetings. So I went.
What, 42?
And I walked out of my dad's yard. And I won't forget it. He was out there on the place. And he said, son, if it costs you your life, don't you come back here for this awful discharge. And that stuck with me all these years. It still does, you know. Because I'd have been a disgrace to him, you know. And I've done a lot of things to hurt my dad anyway. Because he didn't approve of it. Neither did my mother.
So when were you drafted?
42?
What month?
Lord, I don't know. I told him I probably won't get the discharge out. I think it was early part of 42.
So where'd you take your basic?
Yeah, well, the stack was down with Mineral Wells.
Tell me about basic.
Well, they put it on you pretty rough in all that war. They wouldn't cut you no slack. You was soldier 24 hours a day. So they might have you out on that drill field doing calisthenics and close door drill all day long. Going through all that barbed wire entertainment and shooting over your head and stuff like that. And you eat supper and little old two-stripe corporal in, he'd come in there and blow a whistle and scream. Well, you'd have thought he was the major then. He'd holler, fall out, and tell you what to rest and give you so many minutes to be out there and you better be in there. And I know he'd come out there and he'd scream, he'd say, tell you to fall out. He said, boy, fall out, said, I want to see a cloud of dust and 4 living rows of statues just lined up there, you know. He's hard. Anyway, you know, 70, 80-year-old kids did. And he said, and that cloud of dust settles away. He said, I want to see 4 living rows of statues out there. And if somebody lagged or something, he'd tell you to fall back out and go back to your barracks. He'd blow out his whistle, fall out again. But then you'd eat supper, think you had the day in, and then they might come in there and tell you had a night problem. Well, going through maneuvers all night long. And at the end of our basic training, we was at a place they called Hell's Holler. And it was 20, and I signed up for the paratroopers. They come in showing this film of these big white lilies floating around. And you got jump pay. I think it was $10 or $15 more per month then. We showed this film on it, and I thought, boy, I want me some of that. That's more money. So we was out there at Baker's Holler, and there was 25-mile force march back in the camp. And they said, all you boys that make it, said you will get a 5-day furlough and traveling time. And I'm one homesick boy. And so I threw my shoulder back, my combat gear on it, and I made it. We got in there the wee hours of the morning. Next morning, they blowed the whistle and fell us out. Got us out there in the parade field, and they said, all you heroic boys that signed up for paratroopers, said, your furlough's been canceled. Said, you're on alert to be shipped out at a moment's notice. So we stayed right there and done close door drills and calisthenics for 2 weeks, while all them other boys got that 5-day traveling time. I mean 5-day furlough, plus traveling time. Some of them lived in California, New York and stuff. But we didn't. And then they come in there and they shipped me to Fort Benning, Georgia. I went through 3 weeks of jump school, and they found out where I had a fractured skull in a car wreck, and they washed me out of that and put me back in infantry. And I went from there to Fort George D. Meade. We got up there in
Where's that? Georgia Beach.
Fort George Meade.
Yeah.
That's Maryland.
Maryland.
And I forget it was a captain or a major. He asked all of us, we knew we was going overseas. He said, who all of you have had a furlough? Well, I stuck my hand out. And he said he was going to try to get us one. Well, he didn't. And he come down there and he said, asked, there's 3 or 4 of us there he asked. He said, I've tried. He said, I can't get you no furlough. He said, I can get you a 3-day weekend pass. And he asked me, he said, you promise me you won't go AWOL? I said, I'll give you my word I won't go AWOL. I said, all I want to do is get away from this army life for a while. So we went into Washington, Baltimore, and we kind of lived it up there for 3 days.
What did you do those 3 days?
Drank, partied. And while I was there, one old boy took me, found this little gal. I started flirting with her, and then I forget, Tracy was this one old boy's name. But anyway, he got a date with her. Me and Caldwell, we went ahead and partied. We were supposed to meet back in place. He come back, and he's going to marry this girl, of course, back in. You know, I think all of the world was. She wanted his allotment. So he wanted us to go to Baltimore with him and get married. And he didn't have to ride home or get no permit from his folks or nothing in that state. So I don't know, it was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. 3 JIs and 1 girl walking down the street. And all them defense workers go, kind of looked bad, you know. And me and this other kid, we'd kind of hang behind. They'd come on, but they did get married. And we went overseas, and I don't know whatever happened to it after that, because we all got split out.
What was the attitude of the people in Washington toward the GIs at that time?
Oh, we was all right at that time. We was all out war. They needed us. They didn't want them coming over here. You know, all around him, kind of like a Warfield town, you know. First hit there, they don't like it. But
So when did you go overseas?
42, right after I got out of basic there.
And what ship did you go to Europe on?
I don't remember that. I don't remember when I come back. It was a British ship. I remember that. We sailed from Halifax, Canada. They loaded us on a troop train. And I got back in there and got to shooting crabs and went broke. And I got on that British ship and managed around and got some candy bars, and I'd sell it candy bars. I got in with a British sailor there. He'd get the candy bar, I peddled him candy bars, make a little. So I got off the ship, had a little money.
Anything happened on the ship?
No, we just ate that marmalade bread for I don't know how many days. We docked at Liverpool, England. And they run us through the mess hall there, and they give us Vienna sausage. And they must have been boys, because a bunch of us got the ptomaine poison that night. And they even lost a few. And then they shipped me to, I joined the 1st Division.
1st Infantry Division?
Yeah.
Big red one.
Yeah. And there was several of us. And Captain Rusley called us all out in the parade field. He said, we was the first one over here in World War I, and we was the last one home, and said we was first over here. We're going to be the last one home this one. I'm already homesick. I sure wouldn't want to hear that. And then we trained, went on maneuvers there in England, got ready to make an invasion of France. June the 6th, by 44, we done it.
Okay, what was the attitude of the British toward the Americans?
Oh, some of them liked us, some of them didn't. The biggest part of them didn't think. We had more money to spend at that time. American dollar was worth quite a bit more than the British pound. So we had more money to spend than the British soldier. So I was into that.
Building up to June 6th. Did you know the invasion was June 6th?
Did I know it was coming? Well, I was pretty sure.
What was your attitude?
Well, I wasn't liking the idea, but I was ready. I knew we wasn't going to get it over if we didn't get started.
Mm-hmm. When did they tell you it was June 6th, the date?
They loaded us on them ships, and we went on a maneuver just about a week or so before that. Just like we was getting ready to. And we went back when we hit the beach there someplace in England. And it was about a week later they loaded us. We knew it was going to happen. But we left there evening of the 5th, Dorchester. And just as far as you could see, any direction you looked was nothing but ships. And the next morning, June the 6th morning, just cracking day, well, we started in. And overhead the Air Force, we had all Air Force force you can think of person could ever want to, and battleships. And I was on the LCI. And they would, with all that Air Force over, give you a lot of encouragement, you know, and battleships. But they was landing crafts just as far as you could see, any direction you looked, frankly, left to the right of you. But I know I come up on deck before daybreak, and I could look over on that beach. And we was the first wave hit that Omaha beach. And you could see them old battleships shelling far out of them, dropping them bombs on it.
Did you know you were going to be the first wave?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I didn't right at that time. But I was scared. I'm not going to lie about it. Well, you was over there rooting. You'd see a bomb flash over there where the Air Force had dropped it, or a battleship shell that old beach. You'd say, soften that booger up.
How much resistance was there at Omaha Beach?
Huh?
How much resistance was there at Omaha Beach?
Quite a little bunch. And it's, we got our, on the LCI, there's 2 ramps coming down each side. You get ready to unload, you come out of that thing, you come out there, hit them ramps, hit the water, shore. But we never did make it in. We got both ramps loaded off from our ship before we ever made it in. And got a mortar section knocked out, and the executive officer killed before we ever got off ship. And our company commander, his head was laid wide open. And that was Captain Russell. But he was on that beachhead giving order. He was a soldier all the way. Great man.
How'd you get on the beach then if the ramps were gone?
Huh?
How'd you get on the beach if the ramps were gone?
We hit the water. Had these May West belts called them COT cartridge. You hit them, you hit the bust in. I had a 15-pound bull charge and BAR on my shoulder in combat mode. But I got ashore with it. I was the only idiot that got ashore, I think, with that 15-pound bull charge. I hung on to it and got it ashore. And there's a lot of mines in them on there. And you can see, you're just moving up. They call them S mines. And they did pop up and then they'd explode in there. And then but they was ships all up and down there. Them sailors, they'd come over, brought them landing crafts over there. I think it 21 days come across the Atlantic. And they'd tell us that they was going to take us over and drop us off. That's going to be better. Go back to England and have the girls. Well, some of them might have got to do with it, but there was a lot of them didn't because they got their ship knocked out of them right there on that beach. That I know.
Tell me about the noise.
Huh?
The noise when you were going in.
Well, there's a lot of banging going on. And there's some of them hit close, you know. You'd see this boy, you know, tanks, half tracks, stuff like that. Just, or you see somebody walking along, they hit one of them mines, and it'd explode, it's a big boom. He'd just fall over, that was it. But I've seen the whole side of the ships blowed out, and all you could look back in there was just see where them boys been in there in them bunks, just mangled bodies, bass, you know. Then we got on in. We was with Pat.
What's the first thing you did when you hit the beach? The first thing you did when you hit the beach, what'd you do?
Well, you was getting down on your belly crawling. And there was a draw coming up through there. They had them minesweepers going up through there. You got a rail where we get on and get footing. And then we got on in. And it was Pat. We pushed in there. I have to get up there around Maritime, France, if I remember.
And how long you on the beach?
Huh?
How long you on the beach?
Oh, a couple days.
What'd you do in those days? What'd you do?
Anytime you seen a German or heard anything you thought was a German, you fired on it.
Now, is there a cliff there, or how wide is the beach there at that area?
Well, it was kind of an embankment there.
But how wide is the beach?
Oh, I don't remember. Probably seemed like 500 miles, but it wasn't.
How'd they get rations to you in those 2 days? Do you have the rations with you?
Well, you got a little K ration. And, wasn't much eating going on there for the first few days. I got some crackers and some jelly from some sailors on them boats that I had. But it is K rations.
What kind of positions did the Germans have?
Well, they was embedded. They was dug in. They was ready for us. But like I said, the Air Force and the destroyers, they done a great job.
How many of your company were killed?
Huh?
How many in your company were killed in the invasion?
Oh, I don't remember, but there's quite a few of them killed and wounded. I don't know how many there was that day, but a bunch of them got wiped out. But we got hit pretty hard. And,
so you had to break out.
Huh?
You had to break out.
Yeah, we got broke out and got up, got started. And then they got some tanks in there, aircraft in there, guns and stuff. Of course, we had the Air Force over there constant 24 hours a day. Them Germans would sneak in there and bomb at night, what have you. And, then we went from there right on up. We got it pushed in there quite a ways, and Pat run out of fuel. Supply lines couldn't keep that old man supplied fuel and ammunition for them tanks. And we was with him. And we dug in, and we was in one box over there for 30 days, I think, waiting on the supply line to get caught up with.
Where were you? Where were you?
If I remember right, I think that was around Maritime, France, in there, right up in there. But we dug in till they get some fuel for that old man.
That Patton?
Yeah. We fought right alongside him.
Were you at St. Lo?
No. Yeah. And Maritime, Riggedy.
Were you at the Battle of St. Lo?
No.
Okay. So after Omaha Beach, what was the next big battle that you were involved?
So I have to get the discharge problem. I see. We pulled in Maritime. At night, and they told us that the orders come out to dig in and set up defense, which we did. We dug our foxhole, got all ready for the night, and then the order come through that we had to contact the enemy. We had to contact the enemy all day, and went into the little old town of Maritime, France, and they let the first squad and the scouts get through, and then they opened up on us. So we was in the town, and they was Germans in these buildings as well as Americans. And we had a hell of a fight that night.
What'd you do? What'd you do in the battle?
I lay down on my belly behind a big old cement pillar there with that BAR gun, and I was barking that town up. And we had a soldier there, another BAR man, name was Raymer. He got killed. And They took the first and second squad. They was going through this town. The road was on a curve. They let them through, and then they opened up on us. And they hit us pretty hard that night, and the town was on fire and everything. And
What was the reaction of the French people, the Americans?
every time you take a town, why they tickled that see you. Viva la Americans, you know. And I don't know where they got it from, but these little old girls, they'd come out and they'd have bells, bracelets with all the Allied flags on. And then we went on up through Holland and Belgium. You know.
Now, which route did you take, or do you know?
Huh?
What route did you take up to that direction, into Belgium and Holland?
I don't know. I'd have to get a map look, but we went into Holland, and they was glad to see us. They treated us good, you know. And then we went right on in. We was in Brussels, Belgium. And there was not to be no fighting in that town when we hit there. And they wasn't. And we got there, we spent the night there, but I know the civilians, they come out. Of course, everything was dark, but they had music and the drinks and the works, you know. We partied that night. But you'd go into these little towns, and big old blue plums was in season. I remember that. And a lot of times the infantry, we'd move it up pretty fast. Wasn't making much resistance. We'd jump on a half track or get on the turn of one of them tracks. Shermans and ride them and tank destroyers. And them little old girls you'd pull in them towns while they'd come out and they'd have their hammers full of them blue plums. And you stop, why boy, they'd come over and give you a bunch of them big old blue plums. Which was
What year was this?
I was 44.
So, what did you think of Brussels?
Huh?
What did you think of Brussels?
Well, I didn't get to see a whole lot of it. It was all dark that night, but we couldn't ask to be treated any better by the civilians. They was good to us. Well, the French was good to us.
So, were you there for the Bulge?
Huh?
Were you there for the Bulge?
No, I got captured for that. I made it to Aachen, Germany, right in the Siegfried line. And our company was down to 65, and we just got replacements in. Straight from the States, straight through boot camp, right on the front line. And they were scared, you know. They'd never seen no act just coming right out of boot camp here in the United States. They'd crab them right up there on the front line. And I was back at the TCP that night. And some of these boys had just come in, they come running down there and said there are Germans all over that hill. I said, well, that don't bother us. I said, but they was there when we took it. I said, we'll get them on now. So I grabbed that BAR and I run down there, and there was a trench dug from one pillbox to another, just a zigzag trip. Then that cigarette line in pillboxes. And I run down and I jump in that trench and I open that BAR and I just strafing that hill with that BAR. And the Germans had tucked the pillbox over to my left at that time, and they was coming up that tree and they dropped that handgun there behind me. And when they did that there, I goes up there and I come down and I hollered on the head. Ernest Martin from Atlanta, Kansas, he's still alive today, and I've seen him year before last. And I've talked to him, and I hear from him right regular. Well, he just reached down there and got me, pulled me and drug me in that pillbox. There was 21 of us in this pillbox. It was a 3-room pillbox. So back then we called in and asked for tank support. They said they couldn't get us any up out there right then, so we asked for a border barrage. Well, they laid the border barrage on, then they knocked out communication, because back then it was laid that little old wire line. Well, knocked that out, and then we started hearing tank coming up. We're inside this pillbox, we don't see, and we said, that's Sherman. No, that's a Tiger tanks of them Germans. Well, we finally found out it was a Tiger tank. And the Germans got in one room of this pillbox, and they had a pipe that come up, run through this 6-8 foot of reinforced concrete and back down. They talked from one room to the other through this pipe. They told us to come out hands loose. They're going to build below the pillbox. Well, we didn't go. It got quiet. And they bounced 2 88s off the side right there. We decided it was time to go out. So that's when we got captured.
What was your reaction when you were captured?
Well, I was wounded. But we went out, their hands up.
How badly wounded were you?
I took a hand grenade in the back.
Took a hand grenade.
Yeah. And I'm still carrying that battle. But I always thought
How far were you from the hand grenade?
Huh?
How far were you from the hand grenade?
I don't know, it lit right behind me. I went up there about 20 foot. But anyway, we had a little kid by the name of Carrie Otis. And he was shaking and crying. And anytime you got in an accident, it got hot. Well, he'd go to pieces. His nerves just couldn't take it, and he'd go to crying. But I know with them Germans, we all come out there with our hands in the air, and the Germans said, tell us Hans lost, you know. And he was just shaking and crying, and I told him, I said, Carrie Otis, I said, act like a man, knock that ball off, drop them hands. I said, they ain't going to do more than shoot you anyway. Well, he dropped his hand, and one of them Germans, they crammed a pistol in him. I told him to hand it loose. Boy, he like to have a runaway, you know. Scared to death. And then I got busted up with part of mine because I was wounded, you know. I was back in Wagon Hospital. And then I ended up at that evacuation hospital. Of course, they didn't do nothing. They didn't have facilities their own. They was full thin, really, but they wouldn't give up. They bullheaded. And then we went to. I ended up loaded us on a flat car. It took us from Ogden to Munich. I was up there just a short while. And they shipped us down to Stalag 2B, which is at Hammerstein. And we went from Hammerstein. We was down there just a short time, and they had Yugoslavians.
How were you treated there at Stalag 2B?
Well, at 11B, we was eating grass, anything we get there. We got down there, and seen some of these boys smoking them tailor-made American cigarettes get Red Cross partial. But I wasn't there very long, and I got a half of a one Red Cross partial in 9 months. And it was right there. You got supposed to be a Red Cross partial per week per man. Well, I got a half one. I think it had 4 packs of cigarettes, a can of powdered milk, and a quarter pound of Velveeta cheese, some crackers, and a little can of that Nescafe coffee. And I got a half of one of them, and then they had Russian, Yugoslavian, French, you name it. They was all kind of prisoners there. Of course, kind of had to separate up Americans, you know. But they got it in their head. There was 202 of us. They came. We was gangsters, American gangsters, swine hunting, all foul names they called us. They did. They got us up there. They loaded us on a boxcar, and it was cold, let me tell you. And they would shipped us from Hammerstein to Stuttgart. And on the road over there, well, the train stopped in the yard, and there was a little square hole at the top of the boxcar. And it had bars on it. You couldn't have crawled through if it didn't have no bars. But Lieutenant Holland, he hollered out there at one of them guards that he wanted to use the bathroom. You was stacked in there like cattle. And he said something about wanting to use the bathroom to one of them guards on the outside. There's the yard. That yard, he just up there shot Lieutenant Holland right between the eyes, and that's all the man done. Said he'd like to get out and get his bathroom. He shot him between the eyes. Then he took it over to Stuttgart. That was a British prisoner. That was Stalag 2D. It was a British prisoner of war camp. And we wasn't there for long. Then they shipped us out on this farm commando down in Colbert County. There's where we stayed. We got down there. It was 60 of us Americans, and then they had some French down there too. That was Field Marshal von Bock's place. And he raised potatoes, rutabagas, and he had a big dairy farm. Well, they kept the cows never did leave the barn in the wintertime. hauled everything, big old homestead, but we never got none, you know. And we never got to go in the barn, to milk or nothing. And we got out, it was just strictly rutabaga soup, boiled rutabagas. And then, we hauled on with oxens. You forked it on the wagon and you forked it off. And we got this pit cleaned out. And then they put us working in a timber. And we had an old man that was 72 years old. I never will forget it. And the Russians was come moving in, and he'd asked me, "What's this American's playground?" I said, "No, Russian artillery." Well, that he didn't want to hear that, so then they put us on the road marching. They didn't want the Russian liberators, so we marched in war, you know. But when we was at Hammerstein there, they come in there and took our OD uniforms, which was wool, you know. They took our uniforms and they used our uniform when they jumped them German paratroopers in American uniform. They come off old boys' back, prisoners' boys' backs, what they call them. And they give us rags to wear.
Where do those Germans jump? What part?
Huh?
Where did they jump?
They're in the bells and bows.
In the Bulge?
Yeah. You take much, they coming out there and hitting the ground as in American uniform, you didn't know whether you'd fight an American or a German, you know. But the part that hurt me the worst, when I was finally over and I was liberated, and they put up an airlift, flew us back to Camp Lucky Strike, caught a boat, come home, Dr. Newport News, May the 14th, 45, I think that's right. I know it was Mother's Day, because I wrote Mother and told her, I said, I hope to see you on Mother's Day, which I didn't meet her, but I knocked on Mother's Day, I remember that. And they loaded all the Okies and Arkies on a troop train and went down here to Arkansas, Camp Taffy, Arkansas, and we got in there and we got a 60-day furlough. All prisoners of war got a 60-day furlough. Well, I come back, was in Bartlesville, and you could buy them old third-grade guitars for $10.40. And they didn't guarantee them to get out of the driveway. You don't remember that, but your dad does. That I know. Well, I know Dad put 4 of them on the car. He's going to have me some tars, what I know. But I blowed up several of them, and then I went to Blackwell with my brothers. The soap was hard to get. The beer joints opened up. Well, they wouldn't have beer, but just 2 or 3 hours they'd be sold out of beer. And coffee, a lot of that stuff. Well, I go down and talk while I sit with my brothers, and I could go down there at that prisoner of war camp in Topwell, Oklahoma. And they had them Germans, they was working in the foundries and stuff, paying them salaries, and they had the same PX facilities that the Army did. They go down there, they can buy cigarettes, potato chips, just like any PX post, you know. And I could go down there and I could get my cigarettes, whatever I needed, right down there, no problem. But what hurt the most was then they got to telling me about the German. They had the American girls going out there once a week and having a dance with them German soldiers. They starved us to death. They sure didn't have no entertainment for us, you know. And that hurt. But I ain't got no hate in my heart against none of them. I know nothing wrong. Used to when I first come home, but same way with friends. They let friends come over here and buy us. Now then they're letting gonna get this communist punch in your neck, I guess, looks like.
When were you captured? What was the date of your capture?
October 18th, 44.
Did you go through Liège, Belgium?
Huh?
Did you go through Liège? From Brussels, where'd you go? You said you went through Aachen?
Yeah.
So from Brussels, how'd you travel?
Oh, I don't know that route. I can get a map, get close to it, I think.
So you were, the first Stalag you were sent to was, tell me, were you ever bombed on the railroads by the Americans?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Using these marshal yards, you know, they'd come over to strafe you, yeah.
Where were you when that happened?
Between Stuttgart and Hammerstein. And they bombed Stuttgart while we was there. And they did come in and holler and tell us to go out and take cover and get in them ditches, you know. But all we was doing out there just telling them to lay it on them. Of course, it wasn't none of it hitting around us. But a lot of these towns have been hit hard and bombed hard and shelled hard. You go through them, they'd spit at you, throw rocks at you, because their towns have been destroyed.
What's your worst experience as a prisoner?
Well, I hitting that Omaha Beach was worst, and then getting captured.
Tell me about the day you were liberated.
Well, the day you don't want to hear that. They come in there and they liberated us. Well,
It's about the Americans or Russians?
Americans. They come in there and liberated us. Why, you're dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-old boys, you know. Well, we started taking over this little old town. And the bars, all the bars had a picture of Hitler on it, you know. And we'd take their cars, they'd pile GIs in them, on them. They was real small cars. But they'd go in them bars, and the first thing they'd do, well, they'd go over and take over and run the bar and suit the American way. They'd get them drinks, they'd see them Hitler pictures, well, they'd go crazy. They'd destroy them right away. And me, why, a boogermaster was like a mayor. I got a hold of a motorcycle. And I was having me a heyday on it. I was liberated. And I got it down, laid it down. It got out from under me. And a little old second lieutenant that liberated us, he come in there and he did dress me down for getting on that motorcycle. He said, go through all this and get liberated. He said, that now then, you almost killed yourself on that motorcycle, you know. But
Where were you at that time?
I forget the name of that little old town.
Where were you liberated at?
Huh?
Where were you liberated at?
I said, I forget the name of that little old town. We was on the road marching. I hadn't been there long.
How long had you been marching?
Well, we left out there in,
From Stalag, what?
from down at that farm commando,
What part of Germany is that located?
Goldberg,
Bulge.
and it was cold. And, but they was marching us away from the Russians. But I know we come into this, I turned 21, if I remember right. And I had a friend there. I said, I feel like every step, we've seen these P-38s overhead. And they was not supposed to be a long-range plane, and I got courage, and I said, told Charlie Scott, I said, I feel like every step I'm taking today, I'm stepping that much closer to home. Well, we stopped at night, and they had these German planes was back under these evergreens and camouflaged and everything. And they was wanting us prisoners of war to dig ditches for the German soldiers to fight in, which was supposed to be against the Geneva Convention, you know. Well, we wasn't doing too good a job of it. We had these guards that run up and down the ditch there and stick that pistol in your side of the head, tell you all about for the Fuhrer, you know, get you to dig it a little bit, and they'd look down there and somebody else would be WPA in it, like you used to call it, you know, and they'd drive you crazy. But that evening I had an underofficer tell me to get him some straw for his bed, and of course I didn't lose. I was getting brave because I felt the war was about over, but anyway. And I used little foul language, told him I wasn't going to, but he knocked the far out of me, and I got him some straw, but I didn't quit cussing him. He just didn't hear me.
Maybe he didn't understand you.
Huh?
You were cussing in English and he was German, huh?
They beat his hands. See how crippled his hands are? They crippled his hands for not minded. And it's also his feet. Hammer the guns on.
I got my feet froze while I was over there. In my hand.
Where's that at?
Down there on that farm commando. After they come in there at Hammerstein, they took them uniforms away from us. They gave us rags, you know.
Did they interrogate you?
Tried to.
When you were injured and taken prisoner and put in the hospital, were you put in a hospital?
Evacuation hospital just for a little bit.
How did they treat you there at the hospital?
Well, they had me on this table, and they were trying to give me ether, I presume. But I know I said, had me on this table or gurney, whatever you call it. And I reared up and I said, USBs are choking me. About that time something hit me in the head and I went down. But what they done then, I don't know, but I know there's shrapnel. It's still on my back. Every x-ray, it's all on my back. And then I come to, I was laying in this straw, a pile of straw. And there was a German woman there. And she would ask me, is it true that America has so many tanks to Germany's one? Well, I don't know how many tanks Germany's got. And didn't really know how many Americans had. Or is it true America's got so many planes to Germany's one? Well, at that, I didn't know, and I wasn't supposed to tell anyway. And same way with our warships, you know. And I never did lose faith in winning the war, even when I was president. I had all the confidence in the world of us coming through. I just didn't know how long it was going to take.
If I can ask, if you don't want to answer, why do they do that to your hands?
Well, they want you to work for them, and you wasn't wanting to work for them. You ain't wanting to help them win the war, right? They'd come up there and whop you on the hand.
What'd they use?
Huh?
What'd they use?
Sticks, clubs, anything they had their hand on. That. Just like hauling that dung. There was this manure pit, and it had none of this here modern machinery loaded with, or front end loader on a tractor. You forked it on there with a fork, and then you went steel, and it's snow about this deep. With oxen, was hauled with oxen. And they'd come up and knock the fire out of you, beat you on the shoulder and hands. Tell you to arbeit for the Fuhrer. We got down there, and that little under officer, we first got down there at Farm Commando. Little under officer, he come in there and he said, we fell out work detail. He said he wanted us to come to attention and Heil Hitler every morning. You know, we had an Italian interpreter. Well, you know how an Italian are. A lot of times you're going to shoot one of them, they'd laugh at you. And Sponzelli was his name. And he said, Sponzelli turned around to us and he said he wanted us American prisoners to come to attention and Heil Hitler every morning. We said, you tell him that we're American prisoners of war. We're not German soldiers, we're not the Heil Hitler. He said, what's going to make him awful mad? We said, well, just make him mad. Of course, Sponzelli told him, sort of, it made him mad, but we never did Heil Hitler. We said, hey, we draw the line, we would not do that.
Did you tell him about the boxcars, being moved in the boxcars?
I told him about boxcars, killing Lieutenant Holland, but there was no heat in them boxcars, none whatsoever. They loaded in there just like you remember when they used ship cattle, boxcar. Well, that's just the way we'd load in there, just like cattle.
When did you see your first American? When you were liberated?
The day?
Yeah.
I don't remember the day.
What happened? Tell me what happened.
Well, first, the Germans were scared. And we pulled into this little old town, and we had them old grayback lice, and our guards was getting scared. And they told us to stay in a group in a sheep pen. Said, you get out away from the group, said them SS troops, they will shoot you. Well, we took and me and Charlie Scott that night, there's another little town not too far away from there. We thought we'd sneak up there, and we did. And we got up there and we found out there'd been a German ambulance come through there. But I said, if there's a place big enough for an ambulance to get through, there's a place for me to get out. But they was people there talking in all them foreign languages. I didn't understand them, and Charlie, he could understand part of them. But anyway, we went back to that group that night. Next day, well, we got up and we went to another little town. I don't know, 5 or 6 miles from there, maybe 8. But we went in there, and there's a bunch of French there, and they started hollering, American, American. We heard these big trucks, convoys coming. Of course, we didn't have on American uniform, but we was trying to get to them with Americans, and them old boys was fighting. And they weren't going to shut down talking to no civilian. They just kept boogieing. But right after that's when we got liberated. And it was a great day, let me tell you.
What'd you do that day?
Huh?
What'd you do that day?
Well, like I said, we started making them berry joints and raising cane. And then they brought in an emergency airlift in there, and they started loading us on them 6x6s. Well, them old boys is hungry, and they'd been hungry. They even loaded hogs. They'd get hogs, load them in them trucks, chickens and turkeys, and they had these prisoners of war in these American trucks, taking them to the airlift, and they'd grab these chickens and turkeys and what have you. They'd hold them over the side of one of them Army 6x6s. Them little chickens just flopped, but they was going to take some groceries with them. And then we went down there at the airlift, and they formed us in groups of 24, 5. And the Red Cross got up there and got donuts and coffee to us shortly after. They got us down there at that airstrip, load us and take us back to La Havre, France. We got in that plane, we got back there, and there was a bunch of rations back there, so we started eating on them. Helped ourselves. We didn't co-pilot that air crew. We didn't ask if it was all right. We just dove into them. But the Red Cross got up there, and there's some of them boys. One of them I remember very plainly. He was so hungry and starved that he ate so many of them donuts that he killed himself right there. That actually happened.
While you were a prisoner, did you tell us about your sleeping quarters? Did they furnish you with bathrooms?
No bath.
No bath.
Just like a little country privy, only it was great big. And there was no bath, no heat. They'd bring in little blocks of coal. And then when like I said, I wasn't at Stalag 2 being left me. They'd give you a little ration of coal for a great big, just like an army barrack, but with no heat in it. Well, they guys take they take them can lids off them Red Cross bars, so they make a pulley out of it. And they scissors, and they make just like a forge, like you've seen around the blacksmith shop. And crank. And it had a little old bowl there, and they'd bust this coal up, one handful of it, But you'd get rutabaga soup or barley soup there at Stalag 2B, but they'd get a little old fire going in them there. There's several of them I wish to this day that I think I could tell make one. But it was a fan, Lord, it's like an old blacksmith's forge. And it had crank it and had a string on it to run it. Low air, well, I'd get more fuel out of that coal to holler fire, you know, just like a forge. And they'd have a little tin can of soup or something. They'd heat the soup back up that way. No, we didn't have no heat.
Slept on the floor, I suppose.
No, they had bunks, but they didn't have none of this here.
Tell them about your blanket.
One little thin blanket, the old straw one. They had straw one. And, no, you didn't have no ceiling mattress, nothing like that.
Well, your back must have healed up pretty fast.
I wait and finally healed up.
He's still got big scars all over his back and hips.
I still have trouble with it.
How do you, or do you think about, why weren't you killed when you were that close to a hand grenade? Because not many people survive being that close to a hand grenade.
But it hit right behind me.
His,
The only thing I can think.
his buddy told us that when he picked him up and took him back into the ditch, that his head was bloody, his eyes and ears and nose and mouth was bleeding, and they didn't know but what he was dead. And his sergeant called me and talked to me. We communicate with him now regularly, and he said, I was so glad to see Ray's name, that he was still alive. They all thought that he was killed at that time because he was in such a mangled mess. And we communicate. I write to 6 of his buddies.
Well, we need to cut off. We need to come back and finish up.
When you returned home, what did you do then? Did you help your dad or go in business of your own? Or?
No, Dad offered me a quarter section of land. And I says, no. I said when I left here, I didn't want to come out here and try to make no starvation living on an old dirt land farm. And I said, I'm going to live where the lights bright and women's wild. And it wasn't long after that my dad told my brother, said, I'm glad he didn't take me up on that, said, because if he had it, he'd have drank that up. Which was probably true at that time.
When did you meet your wife?
Now we're getting into this.
He's had several of them.
Oh, yes.
I've had 7 wives.
7 wives.
Yeah. That's the best one of the whole bunch.
Thank you.
She's with us at Storm for 17 years. We have a good relationship. No problem.
Do you have any children?
3. But I was nervous, upset, dissatisfied.
3 children by his first wife.
You were probably hard to live with at first.
Very.
Well, she says I still am.
Very.
But, well, I gave up drinking 2 years and a half, a little over.
3 years ago.
Huh?
3 years ago.
But I don't mess with it no more. And I hope, pray the good Lord gives me strength that I'll never drink again.
When'd you move to Woodland?
Well, this last time, I've been here since 66, 67.
Why'd you move out here?
Oil field.
What'd you do in the oil fields?
Work Derrick speaks part-time.
No, when you say work Derek's, what's that?
That's upstairs.
What do you do up there?
That's it, pipe, mix that mud. I worked from Louisiana, Wyoming. I made all them little towns practically. Seminole, and farmed into Mexico, Grants.
And he has those nightmares at night where he's fighting the Germans, that he bails out of bed or comes whacking at me, and it's dangerous to be alive sometimes. one night he was fighting the Germans and he bailed out of bed and hollered, "Oh," and get him. And I turned on the light to see what he was getting. Well, don't do that. And he was bloody from one end to the other. And I thought surely somebody had shot him. But he had hit the corner table and got his ear, and he was bloody. So he really fights them Germans every night. There's
And
just
he
no,
never got over that.
no, there's just no let up. And the doctor says there is no let up. Them wars will always be with him. Sit down and turn him back on.
Did you know a Bob Hill over there?
Bob who?
Hill? Run a Sinclair station over at Bartlesville. When was you born?
We need to come back. He's on his birthday. We're gonna,
Just turn it off.
yeah, let me shut
Okay.
this off.
When was you born?
46. Daddy got home from the war in January 46, and I was born in September.
Well, that was before your time now. Bob Hill used to run the Sinclair station there that Dad had good hunted with.
You come back, I can talk better.
Okay.
But you know, them colored over there, they mistreated the colored folks over there, you know.
Old Nigger Prim.
Huh?
Nigger Prim, that his name?
Yeah.
He was more or less was head of the black community in Bartlesville.
Were you in the tornado?
In the one in Hagen's at the same
I
time.
mean, I don't believe in this intermarriage,
I was in
you know,
the one
Yeah.
over Hagen's.
You were in it?
and
Uh-huh.
Well, we sure want to get our story.
We